Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Joining me today is Marc Lafleur of DB8 Labs. Thanks for joining us today, Marc.
Hey, excited to be back.
Okay, we're going to talk about a little bit about Dragon's Den upcoming, but first we want to talk a little bit about your background in history. Like you've got a well-known story about, coming from nothing, basically doing truLOCAL, selling that for millions, now with DB8 Labs. Can you tell me what your entrepreneurial journey, the lessons that people can learn from your story, I guess?
Yeah, I think, I'm fortunate, I guess. I found my entrepreneurial success after two failed startups, and I was just one of those kids that wasn't going to fit the mold very well. Whether you call it a problem with authority or just asked way too many questions all the time, I always thought I had a better answer. I had pretty much struggled a lot academically, and then when I did find entrepreneurship, probably around the age of 22. I just was stubborn. Like I didn't know any better. And I think naivety is actually, a gift. So I had two failed startups and then eventually found success with truLOCAL, which was my third startup in 2015. And it was funny because even back then, it was the best time ever to start a business. Like the best time ever. Historically, if you look at it 20, 30 years ago, to start a company, you had to get a lease. You had to get a brick and mortar shop. You had to get, inventory. It was a lot of risk that was going on. And truLOCAL was a very difficult business. If you imagine, we had almost the most difficult parts of every single industry you could imagine. We built our own website, so it wasn't like we were using Shopify or anything like that. So we had a full engineering team. And, we say we're not a tech company, but we were tech enabled. So we had five software engineers, but we also dealt with last mile logistics. We delivered stuff to people's homes. So that in itself is a huge cost and a huge logistics nightmare. We had warehousing management. We had the scale of typical retail when it comes to customer service. We dealt with food. We dealt with frozen food. So even though trying to sell meat online through a subscription box was a fairly difficult model to do back in the day, it still was the easiest time ever that you could start a company. And I think that now when you look at 2026, it's gotten even easier. So the thing that I found very interesting, and I think the biggest lesson I learned along the way is that as long as you just are willing to go ahead and fail over and over and over and over again, you're going to eventually find success. It's inevitable, right? Because as long as you're the type of individual who can even take a small percentage of your failures and learn from it, eventually after, five or six cycles of failure, things are going to start to fall into place. So, the only real variable that starts coming into there is how many times can you take a chance before you actually just have to call it quits. And that's different for everybody. But I think people, especially in their early 20s or younger nowadays, like you've got so much risk. You should have such a huge tolerance for risk. You're never going to regret taking that chance. I'm a huge believer that I think everybody, period, should try entrepreneurship at least once in their life. It should be like a mandatory service because even if you fail, you're just going to become a far greater and more competent human being just by going through the motions of trying to start a company. If you think signing a mortgage is intimidating, it's not if you've done entrepreneurship. If you think planning a wedding is complicated, it's not if you've done entrepreneurship. So I think the biggest takeaway is just getting after it, realizing that it is much easier than people think. And that is not to say that you're going to find success easy, but if you look at historically the rise of entrepreneurship over the past, I don't know, however many 100 years, let's say, this is the best chance of success that you have.
Okay, let me ask, in terms of the Dragon's Den, what are you looking at when you're a guest investor, I guess there. What are you looking at for AI startups?
Yeah, so obviously I love investing in industries that I'm familiar with. Right now, DB8 Labs is 100% focused on consumer AI, so I know that really well. But as a lot of investors will tell you, especially when it comes to angel investing, it's a lot less about the product or the business and a lot more about the founder. If you look at truLOCAL as an example, on paper, truLOCAL is a horrible idea. Like if you were talking to an investor, and we did, and you say, hey, we want to take food in this hyper competitive space and we want to ship it in the mail to people, it doesn't make a lot of sense. It was the essentially just kind of like bulldog tenacity, the naivety of not thinking that we could fail and then putting an amazing team together that found the success. So I'm looking for people more than anything. And I really do think that we need more entrepreneurs, especially in Canada. The entire world is pivoting into entrepreneurship. The entire world is pivoting into building your own, whether it's a micro business or the solo institution or anything. But entrepreneurship is no longer going to be this fringe sort of thing for the risk takers. It should become more of a norm. So I think being a guest investor and being a guest dragon on Dragon's Den does two things. Number one, it takes my story and puts it in the forefront once again to kind of show how anybody can do this, right? Like I didn't have a silver spoon in my mouth. I just once again was not willing to give up, and I think that should hopefully inspire a whole new cohort of entrepreneurs to take a chance. And then number two is, of course, I'm looking to invest in the best founders in Canada, right? At the end of the day, I always say real recognize real, and for me, I'm looking for kids that remind me of myself, and it's not, I guess I say kids, but I just say, young individuals who are out there that are going to tilt the universe in their favor. They will not take no for an answer. They are so stubborn or so convicted in what they have and what they want to do that it doesn't matter what we say. These are the people that when you see a founder, you can tell sometimes whether they're going to be successful with or without you. And those are the type of people that I want to get behind. The ones who are like, I don't care if you tell me no today, I'm going to go make it work down the line. And it's easy to sniff that out once you've been through it. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those founders that are just, going to get after it no matter what. A good idea is a plus, but it's definitely not the only thing for me that I look at.
Yeah. Why invest in Canada now?
I think that right now, when you look at it, it's just what Canada needs. Like Canada needs more people backing Canadian founders. When you look at it compared to the US, the investment market is down. The speed in which you try to raise capital is down. We're losing so many entrepreneurs to the US, and it's just because the US makes decisions fast. The capital flows easy. There's not as much friction. And if I'm gonna have built, businesses and I'm gonna be mentoring people, well, I want to try to be able to support that. So I actually try to take more of an American approach when it comes to finding founders and doing investments. I don't want to waste investors' time, or sorry, founders' time. That's the biggest thing I've always said. I might be an investor at this point and do angel investments, but I'm still founder first. I'm not an institutional investor. I'm not a Bay Street guy. I'm not I don't push pencils. I don't work on spreadsheets. Like I'm in the trenches doing that. And I think that the most disrespectful, frustrating part of raising money is going through 6 weeks to hear a no. So for me, I just want to come in quick. I want to be like, okay, look, this is a fit or it's not, and just make a decision. I like this person or I don't like this person, and just make a deal. And that's where it's at. So I think that Canada has to change its tune when it comes to entrepreneurship. We need to support entrepreneurship. We need to stop vilifying individuals for wanting to build a better life for themselves. It's okay to be financially motivated, right? We should have more of that. It's the one thing that everybody can rally behind, even if they want to say it or not. And I see it all the time. I talk to high school kids all the time. And you can tell because they'll come and grab me after I do talks and be like, hey man, like it's hard for me to tell my friends or my parents or post that I want to make money, that I want to win, that I want business, that I want the nice cars and the nice houses and the freedom. They feel like they can't say that anymore. And if you can't say that, then where's the motivation to win in entrepreneurship?
Yeah.
So right now, I think we need a lot more of that in Canada. And I'm hoping that just by me getting more vocal and active on it, I can help find that next cohort of entrepreneurs that feel that way.
When you look at personality traits, say of characteristics of entrepreneurs, do you think there's certain uh, personalities that do well as an entrepreneur?
Abs Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Listen, the mix, the crock pot that has to of different personality traits that need to come together to make a good entrepreneur is pretty vast. But there are some things that I think you can look at it where it's the flip side. There's a lot of different entrepreneurs in different shapes and sizes, but there are some things that you can just say you will not make a good entrepreneur. So there are a lot of things that can make a great entrepreneur, right? Obviously, resilience, obviously being crafty, being able to problem solve things, being a professional problem solver, just absolute conviction in the fact that business succeeds over a long period of time. So what is that chip on your shoulder that is going to make you want to wake up in year 3, 4, 5 when all of the walls around you are on fire? You have to have something that is going deeper to make it so you want to push through that. So there's a lot of different things that'll make a successful founder. Obviously, that's on the side of things where I fit in, where I'm not a rocket scientist, right? I'm not the next Elon Musk. I don't have that IQ it factor. I was just very stubborn and very tenacious. And I wasn't, inventing anything new. I was just improving on an existing design. And a lot of founders are doing that, right? That's where a lot of us hang out. And there's a lot of money to be made doing that. And there's a lot of great businesses to be made doing that. So if you are not creating something new, you have to have the qualities that I just described. However, of course, there is the IQ it factor. You could be the next Elon. You could be the next, whoever who genuinely is creating new technology. And there's obviously exciting opportunity there. But I would flip it on its head and just say, like, entrepreneurship's not for everybody, right? If you're the type of person who needs direction, if you're the type of person who needs security, if you're the type of person who blames others for anything that's going on in your life, anything, I don't care what it is, it could be completely out of your control. But if you still point the finger and say, oh, that's the reason why, instead of looking internally and saying, what can I do to change this? It's not going to work. It might work for a week, it might work for a month, it might work for a quarter, it might even work for a year, but you will not push through in year two, three, four when things get really, really hard. So that's some of the things that I think are good in terms of founder personalities.
Okay, last thing I wanted to ask you, Mark, how's it going to feel for you coming full circle, being someone seeking funds and on Dragon's Den to someone giving out funds?
I mean, I think it's a natural part of the story, right? I've always been a huge believer, and I think this is the number one thing. Like, I've manifested everything in my life, like literally. You never know if it's actually going to be achieved, but to say something like, "Oh, I've never imagined myself in that chair," would just be a lie. And I think that the more you imagine something, the more you think about it, then the increased odds of it actually happening are. So it's honestly, obviously a huge honor. I think that once again, we need more people who have started from absolute zero to be in positions to pay it forward, to be in positions to mentor the future. Because once again, that those types of individuals are the ones who are going to inspire the next cohort. And I think what they've done at Dragon's Den and the Full Circle series is amazing because now we've got five individuals from that exact same boat. So it's not even like it's just a one-off, right? And I've known all of those individuals just, of course, by being in the Canadian startup ecosystem, but to sit on a panel with them, like absolute powerhouses, it's $1 billion of value sitting on that panel, and myself being probably on the smallest end of that. So it's like super inspiring, and I think there was an amazing energy, and I think that. If you look at some of the businesses that we saw on the show, like, Canadian entrepreneurship has a lot of opportunity, and we're just really excited to not only be able to share our story on there, but also pay it forward by doing investments. And I can certainly say that deals were made. So just just a great story all the way around.
All right, wonderful. Thanks, Mark, for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks. It was good to catch up.
Okay, that was Marc Lafleur, who is with DB8 Labs. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, a managing editor of Canada's Entrepreneur. Thanks for joining us today.